could be some economic slowdowns that would improve things in the long term.
If it slowed down, it would be because I have to take on China and some other countries. I mean, if I wanted to make a bad deal and settle on China, the market would go up, but it wouldn't be the right thing to do. I'm just not ready to make a deal yet.
President says the economic indicators are strong. Wall Street Monday, the Dow gained 250 points. NASDAQ 106. It will cost them millions, but Planned Parenthood deciding to drop out of a federally funded family planning program.
Rather than abide by a new Trump administration rule prohibiting participants from referring patients for abortions, Planned Parenthood has decided to pull out of the federal Title X program. Planned Parenthood's acting president and CEO says about 4 million women are served nationwide under the Title X program. Planned Parenthood's health centers will remain open, but must now find a source for the loss of federal money. The Trump administration rule has been challenged in a federal appeals court. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
And in New York, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Be a part of the action by going to yahoo.com's Fantasy Sports Pro Football Pick'em. Join League 3384 with the password Ray Gibson. Choose your team name and get your game on. Winners get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on the Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and to bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Tall Tales for Tuesday, the 20th of August. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. Bob will return in 48 days. That's right, 48 days. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, the camera is here, but I didn't print out my lineup, and so I have to look to my left. So you're going to see a lot of my right ear. But I'll tell you what, as I put a note on already on Facebook Live, you're going to see me coming at you from the side, but not so the audio or the thoughts. Okay, these are going to be coming at you straight, so don't worry. The essential nature of this program won't be affected, but I will be turned sideways. Margaret Bloss is already with us and says, Buenas noches, Daryl, from Cypress, Orange County, California. Wow. Hey. You know, I understand that the Orange County has recently tipped in political orientation, so got to watch out for those things because you know what happens when you tip things. You know, they tend to kind of slide off, and California is under that sort of watch. So, like we do, you know, here on Guam. You know, it's too much military on one side of the island. You know, they got to even it out. So, you know, maybe they'll take over the old Acción resort. I don't have anything for the Second Amendment today. I was kind of looking to see whether Bob might have suggested something. But, oh yeah, also, when I look to my left, I'm not looking at the real Joe Cruz, which is kind of puts me at a disadvantage. Maybe I have to put up a rearview mirror or something. But we do have a lot of things to talk about. And the things that you might expect me to get into and dig real deep into, especially after that setup this morning by Ray Gibson, I'm just going to touch on a little bit and get into some other things I find to be very interesting. I hope you do too. So let's go. If you've got some thoughts, the telephone number here is 888-8255. 888-TALK on your phone. And you're welcome to call and share your thoughts with me this afternoon. But let's go ahead and jump right into Zami Ikatni. You know, the Pacific Daily News wrote this, or reprinted from USA Today today, a super fluff piece. I mean, you've heard me admit I'm a Democrat, and this is a Fox News, Fox Radio affiliate. So I know where I am, and I know that I'm among Americans, so I don't have a problem with this. But even today's USA Today reprint was too much for me. It was so bad. It was so bad, Real Joe. It was so bad.
How bad was it?
I gotta tell you, it was so bad that I didn't even type the title of the article onto my sheet.
Wow.
It's on the back of something I tore out of the paper. And I've got that. It's the flip side of the page is more interesting than that. And so I'm not even going to ask you to go and find it yourself and look at it. You won't be missing anything. If you've already read it, you know what I mean. But there's one in the Guam Daily Post that we can take a look at right now. $78 million in legal bills is astounding, which is like head and shoulders above what PDN put out today for its editorial. GovGuam should focus on core services. So let's talk about this for a few minutes. I'll read this out to you in case you don't have it already, and if you don't have it, you should really consider it, the Guam Daily Post. Over the course of 6 years, Government of Guam departments, semi-autonomous agencies, and public corporations have spent an astounding $78 million on legal services. An audit report released by the Guam Office of Public Accountability on Monday states the fees were racked up in the 6 years ending in 2018. So that would be 13 to 18, right? Inclusive. The AB Wompat International Airport Authority was the biggest spender, racking up $17.8 million in 6 budget years, of which $13.5 million was reimbursed by Loti Duty Free, the main retail concessionaire at the airport terminal. Well, that's convenient. So really, you're only talking about $4.3 million. The airport agency and Loti are fighting years-long legal battles over the airport's selection of Loti for the $154 million concession contract. The main law firm hired by the airport has been paid $17.5 million out of the $17.8 million total the audit found. While I'm tossing these numbers around to you, keep in mind that you really should be doing the math, because if $17.8 million was spent, but really $13.5 was reimbursed, then the $78 million is really only $60 million. Okay? Net. And this, I'm trying to unfluff some of the story because you need to understand it. It's astounding, but it doesn't need to be astounding. It just needs to be understood. Let's continue. While the airport was reimbursed for most of these expenses, the agency still spent a net of $4.3 million, didn't I tell you, out of airport funds and legal bills at a time when our gateway to the world could use better upkeep and a facelift. Well, I do believe they're working on that. There's this really big crane outside of the airport, and I know they're working. but $4.3 million. Imagine if they didn't have lawyers and all they did was move people, and whatever was going on in court, never mind. I mean, let the legal side take care of itself. It might have cost us more. We don't know. There's no way to compare that apple with the other orange, right? In recent months, the airport has welcomed tourists and local travelers with water-stained ceilings, broken air conditioners, moving walkways that don't move, and moldy bathrooms with broken fixtures. I know a couple lawyers I'd love to send down to swap out toilets. Public Auditor Benjamin Cruz had suggested the agencies conduct cost and benefit analyses of their legal fees and costs. In response to the public auditor, the airport, under the new management of former Senator Tom Atta, informed OPA that such a study is already underway at the airport. The Port Authority of Guam, not taking into account LOTI's reimbursements to the airport, came in second. The port in the prior administration had been fighting the reinstatement of several fired employees. The port also recently won a Supreme Court ruling that averted its payment of a $14 million, at minimum, arbitration award to a failed fisheries business that sued the port over a lease dispute involving Hotel Wharf. The Port Authority in August began using an in-house legal counsel. I think it's August of this year. I don't think it's August of last year. So, they don't say. Let's see. The other top spenders of contracted legal services. See, the way this is written, I can't tell which one was more, Port Authority or the net of the airport. Anyway, the other top spenders of contracted legal services. Guam Memorial Hospital Authority, $1.4 million. Department of Public Health and Social Services, $1.3 million. Guam Waterworks Authority, $1.2 million. Is that the guy that... I think that's the guy that gave himself the raise and can only afford, now he can only afford with his $115,000 salary to repay it at $25 a paycheck. He's just as poor as me. Poor dude. Really. Anyway, $1.2 million. Also need to follow Cruz's suggestion for a cost and benefit analysis. They need to consider whether the cost of hiring private attorneys and law firms is worth the benefits they bring to taxpayers and ratepayers. Quote, although certain GovGuam entities require special counsel to handle particular cases, we noted that it is cost-effective to hire in-house attorneys, Cruz said. Quote, while each GovGuam entity identifies its needs for legal services, we recommended these entities perform a cost-benefit analysis to determine if it is more feasible to employ government attorneys versus contracting for legal services, he added. With the exception of very highly specialized litigation, GovGuam departments and agencies owe it to the public to be more responsible spenders on legal fees and related costs, so that GovGuam will have money left for the more important stuff. Over the years, Guam residents have been clear about the core issues they want elected officials to address and the expectations they want them to meet. Ensuring that people are safe on the streets and in their homes, public schools meet the mandates of our adequate public education law, our own Bob Klitzkie's draft, and our healthcare system meets islanders' needs are the things that, to many, matter most. And so I am so happy to read this out, although there is some confusion with the math, because I do believe in another article the amount of money spent by the Port Authority of Guam is about 80% higher than what the net amount was that the airport spent. And so it doesn't say how much it cost for the budget of the Attorney General. So I don't know, but I'm happy that the story is out. I just kind of wish that there would be more context provided in the opinion of the editorial board over at Guam Daily Post. And so it's one thing to get your blood up, but you want to get it up for the right reason, right? So I'm going to just think about this for a little bit before I award a star. especially since it has no competition. You know, I mean, PDN's kind of laying down on the job here. So let's leave this aside with Zami Kotny. And, yeah, PDN's editorial, turn on the bright light. No. You know what I really want to talk about? Real Joe? You know what I really want to talk about?
Talk away.
Yeah, there's a tall tale. Bob sent me a tall tale from the New Yorker. I'm going to read this tall tale. Then we're going to talk about it seriously. Okay? Denmark offers to buy U.S. Dateline Copenhagen, the Borowitz report. After rebuffing Donald J. Trump's hypothetical proposal to purchase Greenland, the government of Denmark has announced that it would be interested in buying the United States instead. Quote, as we have stated, Greenland is not for sale, a spokesman for the Danish government said on Friday. We have noted, however, that during the Trump regime, pretty much everything in the United States, including its government, has most definitely been for sale. Denmark would be interested in purchasing the United States in its entirety, with the exception of its government, the spokesperson added. A key provision of the purchase offer, the spokesman said, would be the relocation of Donald Trump to another country, quote, to be determined, with Russia and North Korea cited as possible destinations. If Denmark's bid for the United States is accepted, the Scandinavian nation has ambitious plans for its new acquisition. Quote, we believe that by giving the U.S. an educational system and national health care, it could be transformed from a vast land mass into a great nation, the spokesman said. Anyway, that's Andy Borowitz. And he's a writer for The New Yorker, and that's a humorous piece that Bob sent us, a tall tale from The New Yorker. But today, and this is, I bring this up, it's been sitting on my list for a couple days now, but what happened when I opened the paper this morning, we're still at it. Yes, Donald Trump is really considering purchasing Greenland. Quote, we're looking at it. Top White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow said on Fox News Sunday. That's despite the fact that Greenland's government told Trump on Friday that the island was, quote, not for sale. That comment came after the Wall Street Journal first reported on Thursday that Trump had floated the idea of buying Greenland, an autonomous Danish territory. Kudlow said Sunday the issue is, quote, developing. Quote, I don't want to predict an outcome, Kudlow said. Quote, I'm just saying the president, who knows a thing or two about buying real estate, wants to take a look at a Greenland purchase. He called Greenland a strategic place up there with lots of valuable minerals. And there's stories in both PDN and in the Post today. Here's another part of it. Kudlow also noted that former President Harry Truman had also wanted to buy Greenland. Now, there's stories going back yesterday. Greenland to Trump, we're not for sale. So even the people in Greenland, through their elected representatives, have stated clearly that they are not for sale. And that's this story. But I'm gonna see if I can put it in some context. You may think this is kind of weird, and that's all right. You may think it's kind of weird, but I'll tell you what. Let's not listen to the objections of the deep state. This is a story of manifest destiny. Consider that the Trump administration was supposed to lift the sanctions over Russia, so that the Arctic Siberia oil fields could be developed with U.S. technology and distribution tie-in. Rex Tillerson stepped down from being ExxonMobil CEO to be the Secretary of State, and there was a $500 billion development plan, just like Alaskan North Slope oil. There, with the thawing of much of the northern polar areas, exploration in the northern parts of Siberia have uncovered huge reserves of oil, just dwarfing everything else that's known. And there was supposed to be the development using American technology, American distribution systems, American management and know-how as a partner, but it was blocked by the sanctions over Ukraine, invasion of Ukraine. That was the first item. This is, if you go back and you take a look at it, you'll see the story that the value of that deal would have been tremendous. Anyway, let's go back to this. American Greenland could operate from sovereign and freely associated territory astride the newly ice-free Arctic shipping routes. Yes, I did say freely associated. Whatever deal the U.S. has refined over the years with its strategic partners in Micronesia, the FSM, Marshalls, Palau, without necessarily incorporating U.S. territories or moving the balance that it has domestically with its territories, provides a working model for a relationship with the 57,000 residents of Greenland. Negotiations with Danish and Greenland political leaders are scheduled for early next month, and this is in the articles. Greenland celebrated in June of this year the 10th anniversary of the, quote, Act on Greenland Self-Government, you can look this up, which recognizes Greenland's right to independence. It's self-governing already, and it has a right to independence. With Denmark, it also has the right of consultation before Danish laws apply, and the right to represent itself in international forums and Danish national embassies and consulates. This is just like the relationship that the United States has and is renewing with the FSM. We don't need to purchase Greenland from Denmark like we did the U.S. Virgin Islands in 1917. We simply negotiate a price point where changing Greenland's territorial status from Denmark to the United States becomes attractive. Can we better implement our defense of Europe from its northern flank using technology than with standing armies resident in Germany? Is it a vast offshore place to put refugees? If you are looking for disruptive yet constructive geopolitics, unshackled from multinational norms, you know, the global community telling the U.S. what to do, and the deep staters in the State Department and D.C. academic think tanks, this concept actually works. And we know that by living out here in Guam. If the U.S. can administer a range of territories and have freely associated states that are not intended, the territories and the freely associated states are not even intended to become part of the United States, but it comes under the strategic and defense umbrella, then there's no reason why any other location in the world should not be eligible for that very same status, as long as it is a strategic interest of the United States, and we're willing to, foot the bill. That's what they're negotiating now anyway. So consider this: they are meeting next month in Copenhagen. President Trump is visiting Copenhagen, and he is scheduled to meet with both Danish and Greenland political leaders. So stay tuned, okay, with that. Before we go to our break, let me just bring something else up. You may have missed this, but today in the Post, Gura gets okay for increase in rent assistance. And the Section 8 program receives more than $30 million a year from HUD. But according to a news release, HUD has approved the implementation of a success rate payment standard using Guam's 50th percentile fair market rent. Essentially, this means an increase in GURA's payment standard, the maximum housing assistance the agency is permitted to pay per bedroom size. So the current payment standard, set at a maximum 110% of a 3-bedroom unit, will increase by $124 per month. For a 4-bedroom unit, the payment standard at 110% will go up by $150 per month, and so on. And then with the ability to pay more for rent, the agency hopes to spend more than $2 million in federal funds still available before the money can be recaptured by the, we haven't spent the money yet, $2 million available. The housing, quote, the housing authority has been challenged in meeting a HUD mandate to maintain a lease up rate of 95% or more of its 2,582 authorized vouchers due to several factors. And then it includes low payment standard established by using the 40th percentile of the area's fair market rate. Now we're going to be able to use a 50th percentile. And the story goes on. The point I want to make with this is when GURA gets to pay more for low-cost housing, it's good for the landowners and the landlords. But it's murder on people who don't qualify. Here's and from yesterday's paper, military COLA for Guam increased. May benefit island businesses. And then, let's see, just the highlights here. On August 16, the Joint Region Marianas COLA increase became effective in the pay system. And this will be applicable to service members' pay in the subsequent pay periods. A 2-point increase in the COLA for service members assigned to Guam. And let's see, he's the Operations Deputy Director of Joint Region Marianas, says he sees prices continuing to rise and the money will help him and his family with the growing costs. He said COLA helps military families to deal with the fact that it costs more to purchase goods and services on Guam than on the mainland, and he doesn't see prices decreasing but increasing. Quote, personally, I tend to eat out a lot, and the increase in COLA will likely be spent on trying new restaurants out in town. And that's somebody else being quoted in a news release. Quote, the roads here accelerate the wear and tear on your vehicle. Repairs need to happen often and are not cheap. Take the opportunity to set aside some of this extra money to deal with those bills when they roll in. After last year's dramatic COLA decrease, it's good to see that they are raising the rates somewhat again. Now, this is good for those who are eligible for it. I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying this is more proof that on the federal side, Department of Defense and HUD, they recognize Guam's significantly rising cost of living, enough to fork out more money, just on a formula basis. It's 4:32. Let's take that break, Real Joe, and we'll come back with more Tall Tales.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, Mom, Dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Hey, do you know what time the bank closes? I need to deposit my check.
You know you can do that from your phone.
I can?
With Bank of Guam's mobile app, it's easy. Just endorse the back and snap a pic to deposit it into your account. You can do this from anywhere, anytime, which means no rushing to catch the bank and no lines.
With Bank of Guam's mobile app and online banking, we're always open. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, inviting you to try their lightly smoked double-cut prime rib pork chop, pan-seared and oven-roasted to a juicy finish, served over a crispy potato hash cake, sautéed vegetables, and a blackberry wine sauce. Available in Hagåtña and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Some of you may not have noticed in the paper the other day, no, it was like last Thursday, that there's a notice put in the paper by the Department of Administration to tell everyone that the workers over at Guam Solid Waste Authority, including sanitation workers, equipment operator 2s, equipment operator 3s, and equipment operator leader 1s of the Guam Solid Waste Authority are now being recognized to be represented as a bargaining unit by the Guam Federation of Teachers, Local 1581. And I mention this because of the impact unionization has on the ability of people who have those jobs to negotiate for better working conditions and pay parity. We were talking the other day about good jobs and what happened when so many jobs in the States, good jobs, were lost with the moving of manufacturing overseas. Many of the jobs in the States were unionized, and they were good jobs. And though it was very stable, and the people who had those jobs, they were very good jobs, and they sustained generations. Those jobs are gone. Now, when the jobs come back into those areas, they're not union jobs. Guam is not an at-will labor market, and so private employers can hire and fire, but the government of Guam recognizes the ability of its workers to unionize, and so Guam Solid Waste Authority workers have done so. They've organized and they have representation. Just like teachers and nurses, I believe even, there's some other, I think, Port Authority workers and the like. Anyway, good for them, and it's good for the workers because they know that their work, picking up our trash, house by house, is going to be properly compensated, and they won't be blamed for the breakdowns of the vehicles and stuff like that. Just before I left the house, I saw that the Republican lawmakers down in the legislature are complaining this afternoon that because they haven't started discussing the budget bill, there may not be enough time to thoroughly discuss and pass a balanced budget. And it said they're saying in the article here by the Pacific Daily News that was posted at 1:31 this afternoon, the legislature risks salary suspension if no fiscal 2020 budget is passed by August 31st. If there is no budget measure enacted by September 30, there could be a government shutdown. And so Minority Leader Will Castro said, quote, giving every page of the budget proposal the attention it warrants is going to be a challenge, and there may not be enough time to hold complete and transparent discussion on the budget. Castro said the Republicans are, quote, committed and ready to work to ensure our government, like the rest of our people, lives within its means. Quote, passing a balanced budget is one of the core mandates of this body. To not have sufficient time to do so is an injustice to the process and truly to our people. They rely on us to do this and do it well, Senator Luis Borja-Muñoz said. And it goes down through Senator James Moylan said it is a painful but necessary process that can't be rushed. With the cost containment measures that will be in effect, should Bill 186 pass as written, the amount of time remaining will not provide for a thorough, robust discussion. This is a serious concern with only 11 days left to approve a budget for fiscal year 2020, Senator Tello Taitigui said. And so, it goes on, but this is a continuing story, and there are going to be changes, and those changes are going to be discussed on the floor. We're waiting for that to happen. The minority is right. However, if behind the scenes the budget is being hammered out between the governor and the majority, then it may just be very short. They may just pull the bill out and say, here it is. What do you want to talk about? We'll limit it to 5 minutes. Are we ready to vote? Vote. The discussions may already be done or going on now. I have a non-story for you. Again, our telephone number here, 888-8255. I have a non-story for you, and that is about the Federal Election Commission sending notice to Delegate St. Nicholas for his late quarterly report. It's a non-story, and I'll tell you why. The Federal Election Commission filings are not an official duty by paid staff. So no matter what he was busy doing, it really doesn't matter what he was doing officially, because it's an obligation of the candidate and his campaign to comply with applicable federal law. And he's in finance. This is a piece of cake. The numbers are all there. It's just a matter of plugging them into the form and filing it, which he did. And they might fine him, but generally it's a nuisance fine. It's not a substantive fine, and it's just as a little sting to make sure he doesn't do it again. There's really nothing to see here. As I've said before, it was last Friday, my real concern, and this was brought up this morning on Ray Gibson's show, my real concern is with Delegate St. Nicholas is spending good money by advertising. He's making sure that we know that his people are going around door to door. His staff is going door to door in the villages, and so he's letting us know that. But he's burning bridges with the Democrat majority here on Guam, and he's been doing this since really early on. Getting into a scrap with Lou and with Madeline, and stepping out and ahead of his former colleagues in the legislature to try to get something through on the federal side that he couldn't get past them. So he really needs to start building bridges, not burning them, or he's going to go into the next campaign and there's going to be no, he's not going to have the same kind of campaign organization and backing, because he's a Democrat. And so, and it's valuable. The delegates from the non-voting delegates are part of the count for the balance of power between Democrats and Republicans in the House of Representatives. They are counted for that purpose. They may not vote on the floor, but they're counted for the purpose of who's going to be speaker, who's going to be in charge of all the leadership, who's going to get all the committee assignments, Democrats or Republicans. And as such, the Republican Party of Guam has an obligation to do what it can to put in a Republican. They don't have to support him, as Carl Nelson this morning pointed out so well, that Delegate St. Nicholas won last year with the assistance of Republicans. But come next go-round, the Republican Party of Guam could put up a very strong candidate against him. The first name that comes to mind with me, I haven't talked to him about it, but this was the discussion some time back, recent past, is Frank Bloss Jr. If he were to want to run, where do you think the Republican voters would go? And how about the Democrats who are mad at Mike Nicholas for beating Madeline in the primary and then proceeding to continue to step on her feet and her toes in public just to make the point that he can, not for any particular reason, and burning bridges with his colleagues in the legislature? They're all going to be out there campaigning. So who's going to be campaigning for Mike Nicholas if he really disses the Democrats? So, this is I would say I don't have a dog in this fight, but we all do, because he's elected, so he's got to do the job. And he can't get the job done if he's going to break ranks with other elected leaders on this island who were also elected by the people of Guam to represent their interests. If he's not sitting down with them and they don't come out of the room all speaking the same line, and this is not a defense of the deep state or a call to conservatism or let's do things the same way. There's a time and a place to be disruptive. But if he wants to be more than a one-term, if he wants to be our first one and only term delegate before he's turned out on his ear, then he's going to have to change his ways. And that's just my opinion. But if I've got it wrong, 888-8255. Ring the phone. Tell me right in front of everybody, because I'm good for that. I can take it. If you think I'm wrong here, please make the point publicly. And let's see. And let's take a look at what we've got going on Facebook Live. Got some folks watching. Marquez McManus says, Buenos and half a day. And then he was the first one here. Margaret Bloss, I said already, she's with us. Marquez says he can see my brain waves. Yeah, it's not quite like the like waves in the ocean, It's more like what do you call them? The waves that you see on a graphic of music. Oh, your hair. I need to get a haircut, but I can't seem to manage coordinating both the caregiver of my dad and the woman who I prefer to cut my hair. Eunice Khan says hi. And then Second Amendment, my Taurus judge salutes you. We will get to this. We will get to this. We have serious matters here, being discussed. And I am as concerned as you are about the kind of stuff we're reading in the paper about a movement to slice back gun rights, because it doesn't seem to be tactical or really well supported. And as I said before, I'm becoming convinced of a problem with government tyranny. So, and that's one of the reasons in the founding of this country of us to individually bear arms. James Lester Alonzo says, how about the people who work? I'm not quite sure what he's referring to. Something where one of the things. Then Mitch Brown says, oh my God, my good friend, I just seen there a blind man watching TV. That's why we have radio. That's why even Facebook Live is good for people who want to watch. They want to see what I'm like, what I look like, what my hair is like today. That's good. But the content is what I'm saying on the microphone and what you're hearing in your ear and what you're thinking. It's my brainwave and your brainwave. And that's where we're communicating. Welcome, Ray. I see you there. And Daryl Slider, I attended his wedding way back when. And Troy, welcome. Today, not quite like other days. I don't know why. Other days, sometimes I'm just really shaking it up. But you know, it's almost time for our break. Let's take that break, Real Joe, okay? Let's take this break right now, and then we'll come back, and we'll run it up to the top of the hour in our halftime show. Thanks.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new ciabatta collection. How do you want it?
I'll take the slam poultry.
Sure. Italian ciabatta with mozzarella. When hunger reigns, you're my favorite umbrella. Tasty garlic steak and provolone. With you, my taste buds are never alone. Savory chicken pesto, you have my affection. For you complete the ciabatta collection. Thank you. That was the new ciabatta collection by Subway. Limited time only at participating restaurants.
Parents, start your child's school year right with healthiness and fun. Complete your child's immunizations, annual physical, dental, or eye exam at FHP and receive a free gift for each exam visit. Perfect for back to school. Valid from July 15 to August 31st or while supplies last. Visit their website or Facebook page for more details. Call 646-5825 and press 2 to schedule an appointment today. Most private insurance accepted. FHP Health Center, our island, your clinic.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And welcome back to Tall Tales. Bob sent me this item a couple days ago, an item from PNC News First about SSI case raises questions about constitutional rights of insular area residents. It's sort of an extension of the whole effort to examine the relationship of U.S. citizens in the territories being treated differently than U.S. citizens in states. And there was an attorney, Herman Ferre, who was interviewed locally, and he misspoke in the opinion of Bob Klitzkie, and I completely agree. And so this was what Ferre said. He said, all federal employees in Puerto Rico pay federal income tax. All residents of Puerto Rico, and I assume Guam, pay income tax on earnings made outside the territory. And then he wrote, Bob wrote, Daryl Ferre's assumption is wrong. Residents of Guam pay income tax on their worldwide income to the Treasury of Guam. Puerto Rico is different. So this was the story that was on PNC News First. But and what I was telling Bob is I didn't trust the accuracy of PNC's reporting enough to rely on it, except to research this matter further. And then it was and we were going down through. However, if you recall, back in February when I first started as a substitute for Bob Klitzkie, one of the stories that came out at that time is still on in my files, was from the online magazine Slate. And the story is, Judge blocks discrimination against Puerto Ricans, says federal government is engaging in, quote, citizenship apartheid. And this is the same case. It's just so many months later, and the attorney was out here talking about it. But I want to read the part from Slate this is the ruling of the judge. Now, if you may remember, I talked about this back in the end of the first week of February this year. Just as Congress cannot disfavor gay Americans because of their sexual orientation, Gelpi, the judge, wrote, it cannot single out Puerto Ricans because they live in a territory. Quote, classifying a group of the nation's poor and medically neediest United States citizens as second tier simply because they reside in Puerto Rico, he explained, is by no means rational. To the contrary, it is discriminatory animus against a, quote, politically powerless group. It imposes a, quote, injury and indignity that infringes upon, quote, an essential part of the liberty protected by the Fifth Amendment. This, quote, injury is not justified by the fact that most Puerto Ricans do not pay federal income tax. Taxation status cannot excuse a citizenship apartheid based on historical and social ethnicity within United States soil. Allowing a United States citizen in Puerto Rico that is poor and disabled to be denied SSI disability payments, Gelpi concluded, quote, creates an impermissible second-rate citizenship akin to that premised on race and amounts to Congress switching off the Constitution. Now, this is almost exactly what was the grounds that had where Guam lost the Davis case. Almost the same argument, that Guam was discriminating against Davis because of not giving him equal rights under race. Anyway, the article concludes, these are in short fighting words. Gelpi, the judge, is essentially challenging the judiciary to consider the possibility that federal discrimination against Puerto Ricans is neither benign nor permissible, but rather a result of racist callousness that the Constitution generally prohibits. And it goes on, it says, Gelpi's decision will be appealed, and a higher court may yet order the plaintiff to turn over the $28,081. And then a similar case is also pending in Guam. If appeals courts eventually disagree, the Supreme Court could hear this issue. It is unlikely, though not impossible, that a majority of the justices will agree with Gelpi, given the Supreme Court's imperialist view of Puerto Rico. But at a minimum, Gelpi's ruling will force mainland judges to reckon with the citizenship apartheid that the federal government has created and maintained with the help of the courts. Puerto Ricans deserve better than Trump's malevolence and Congress's neglect. They deserve a judiciary that safeguards the rights afforded to them as American citizens. Now, no matter where you come down on this issue, I'm going to remind you, and if just as Bob would if he were here, that the Constitution treats territories as property of the United States. The property is not the ownership of the people who live here. The property is owned by the United States, and Congress makes all needful rules for the inhabitants. And if they have not made such rule, or to the extent that they have, like extending only certain provisions of the Constitution to apply here, or giving SSI to the Northern Marianas but not to Guam, to U.S. residents, U.S. citizens residing in the Northern Mariana Islands, but not to United States citizens residing in Guam. That is their prerogative. It is in the Constitution. And that is where the insular cases turned. And I don't think that it'll be overturned. But it's interesting to see a judge, a federal judge in Puerto Rico, who is not on a 10-year renewable appointment, but is nominated by a president, confirmed by the Senate for a lifetime employment, so he doesn't have to concern himself with whether he's going to have a job next year, to rule in this manner and to use that kind of language. I'm not prejudging it. I'm just saying that if you read some of these cases and you take into account who is doing the talking, what newspaper or magazine is the one making the presentation, when they start using code words, or they start to sort of paint the plaintiff or the defendant with a certain kind of a brush, saying it's them, and to distract you from the issue, then you're going to miss it. You're going to miss that the same reason that Davis was decided is the same reason that that Gelpi, the judge in Puerto Rico, decided in favor of that New York man, U.S. citizen, who kept getting his SSI when he moved to Puerto Rico. and the federal government's now trying to get it back from him, $28,000. So interesting. It's a good time to be taking a look at some of these. When we come back from our halftime show, in just it's coming up in about a minute here, Fox News at 5 o'clock, and our stirring halftime show, we're going to take a look at an item that was printed in Honolulu Civil Beat entitled, "Has Statehood Actually Worked Out for Hawaii?" For all of you statehood mavens out there and would-be statehood supporters, stay tuned. And if you're not, just see what kind of things we can dig up here over the next hour here on Tall Tales for a Tuesday afternoon on Guam. I see the sun is out. We might just get that sunset yet, unlike yesterday.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Difficult, but justified. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. New York City police officer Daniel Pantaleo fired Monday for the death of Eric Garner 5 years ago after Pantaleo used a chokehold to subdue him during an arrest. New York's Police Commissioner James O'Neill.
This was not an easy decision. It's not something that I could make over a few hours. You know, I've been thinking about this since the day I was sworn in as police commissioner.
Mayor Bill de Blasio calls the decision justice served, but Patrick Lynch, the president of the New York Police Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, says the leadership of the department has abandoned the rank and file.
The police commissioner needs to know he's lost his police department.
The union considering a lawsuit to get Officer Pantaleo's termination overturned. The ink was barely dry on Jeffrey Epstein's will when he died 10 days ago in a New York federal prison cell.
The New York Post reporting Jeffrey Epstein signed his will and testament on August 8th, just 2 days before he hanged himself. The 66-year-old filed the will in St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where he owned 2 properties, including Little St. James Island.
That's Fox's Brian Yennis, who reports Epstein put all of his assets, about $518 million worth, into a trust that would benefit his brother. But there are already challenges to the estate. Federal prosecutors in New York on Monday formally dismissed the criminal indictment against Jeffrey Epstein made moot by his death. After a relatively peaceful weekend of protests, 2 men and a woman have been stabbed while posting pro-democracy and anti-government messages on the makeshift Lenin Wall in Hong Kong early on Tuesday. One of the men was slashed in the throat. The suspect, police say, remains at large. Asian stocks closing Tuesday mixed. Dow futures are up nearly 30 points after the Dow gained 250 points on Monday. The Nasdaq closed 106 points higher. The S&P 500 was up 35. America is listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Kelaguen Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mezcla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65% for travel, back to school, a wedding. Do whatever you want with the money. We just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
The Trump administration pushing back against those who believe the country is headed for a recession.
Although some economists are warning that a U.S. recession may be a possibility in the next 18 months, President Trump, by contrast, doesn't think a recession is on the horizon. Vice President Mike Pence in Detroit touting the strength of the U.S. economy.
The unemployment rate has dropped to a near 50-year low. We've seen the lowest unemployment rates for African Americans and Hispanic Americans ever recorded. The American dream is working again for every American.
Economic weakness in Europe and the U.S. trade war with China have created much uncertainty, but U.S. consumer spending, which makes up more than 2/3 of GDP, jumped 4.3% in the second quarter. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
The president is urging the Federal Reserve Board to stimulate the economy, tweeting Monday the Fed should cut interest rates and return to the monetary policy of quantitative easing. Planned Parenthood withdrawing from Title X, a federally funded family planning program.
Planned Parenthood said goodbye to tens of millions in funding. The organization argues that leaving the program and losing millions is a lot better than complying with a Trump administration rule barring discussion about abortion. Now, earlier this year, the Department of Health and Human Services put new rules into effect that prohibit those receiving Title X funds from discussing or providing or referring patients for abortion. Now, the exceptions, a medical emergency, incest, or rape. In many cases, not all cases, Planned Parenthood and other pro-choice groups say this will restrict abortion access to women with low incomes.
Fox's David Spunt. Drug companies are still raising prices for prescription drugs, but a new study says just not as often or by as much as they used to. Study finds in the first 7 months of this year, list prices for brand-name prescriptions fell by an average of 5%. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Hafa-day, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Be a part of the action by going to yahoo.com's Fantasy Sports Pro Football Pick'em. Join League 3384 with the password Ray Gibson. Choose your team name and get your game on. Winners get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on the Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome back to Tall Tales for a Tuesday afternoon. It's beautiful outside. I do hope you're going to get out there and enjoy the sunset this evening. And I'm Daryl Taggarty. I'm sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in, what did I say, 48 days? Yeah, let's see. 48 days. Yes, 48 days. I got a comment here I'd like to amplify. Let's see. Ishmael Velez says it's not based on race, it is based on domicile. That's right. It's you can't do something based on race. And that's what the judge said. The judges said in the Ninth Circuit on the Davis case, and the judge in Puerto Rico is saying is the basis for the difference in the SSI eligibility for the man who went from New York to Puerto Rico and continued to draw his SSI payments because he didn't tell them that he had moved to a territory. When they found out, they wanted a refund of $28,000. And of course, SSI is only for its supplemental security income, Social Security supplements for people who have certain kinds of disabilities, blindness, various ones. There's a list. So when the judge ruled on that, he said that the only reason for not extending SSI to the territories has nothing to do with whether you pay taxes to the federal treasury or not. It has everything to do with Congress passing a racially discriminatory law. And so we'll see how this all works out. You know, this is stuff going forward. The reason I bring it up at all is because the attorney for the Guam case, which is similar to the Puerto Rico case, was interviewed last week on PNC News, and he misspoke about the tax treatment of Americans on Guam, about paying into the federal treasury. That's where that started. Then on Mike Nicholas, Elwin Champaco Quitano said, "Here's the point, Daryl. Mike Nicholas is now a representative for all the people of Guam, for both Republicans and Democrats. The people of Guam have awakened to the fact that he's getting things done in record time and in a far more aggressive fashion than any other representative in Guam's history. It will be very difficult to find someone to replace his courage and momentum." And I understand your sentiment, and I'm not going to minimize the importance of the accomplishments that Mike Nicholas has already tallied, you know, in his first 7 months of being in office of his first term. All credit to him for what he has done. But the Congress is not a place where aggression and moving forward without colleagues is a winning behavior. Congress is, just like the legislature, based on a majority moving forward together. If you're not looking sideways to get and reaching out sideways to your colleagues, you cannot go forward. The experience of our delegates, going back to Mr. Wampat's time, has been that you have to educate and educate and educate. You have to talk. The Guam story has to be told so that more and more congressmen and senators, even with them coming and going, right, being voted out of office, and you got to start up all over again with new ones. And you have to cultivate the ones that have been around with you since you came in. That is the responsibility of our single delegate to the Congress. Other states have a delegation of at least one member of the House of Representatives and 2 senators. We have a delegation of 1. That's why he's called the delegate from Guam. And he's identified as a delegate. And again, it's to get the colleagues to go forward with your issue. Enough of them. And that requires 200 some to prevail in Congress. In the legislature, it was not 200, it was only 7 others because of the number 15. So that's the part I'm concerned about. And as I said last week, is that by him burning bridges locally, the governor and the legislature, if there's a difference of opinion, then it's going to give some of the people in Congress pause about siding with Mike Nicholas on an issue, as he's going with other issues to go forward. It's going to be a problem. It can be a problem if there's controversy. If there is no partisanship involved and everyone is in agreement on the things he's proposing, fine. It'll just go through because there is no partisanship, as you point out, after the election. It's just on the issues. But the issues, if he's having a political spat here on Guam, then the issue gets compromised. And that's why I'm cautioning him, not criticizing, cautioning him on this forum, and perhaps you should too. It's not a concession to the deep state. It is not a conservative preference to be the way that we've always been. It is the way it is there. We had a delegate who was a highly respected retired general, Marine general. And his approach was to go forward, not to go sideways. And he was very well liked and respected in the Congress. Not a lot got done. We had a delegate who was very articulate and worked very hard horizontally to get to bring his colleagues along. And then the Congress flipped from Democrat to Republican, and so many of the people that he had built bridges to weren't there anymore. And it was very difficult to convince Republicans during the time of the Tea Party and all that stuff to see things in a nonpartisan way. You know, Mike Nicholas is fortunate that he came in with a Democrat majority in the Congress, in the House of Representatives. Otherwise, he would be facing the same kind of obstruction that Madeline Bordallo faced under the Republican majority of the Congress. And just same kind of obstruction that is part of the system. It's just part of the system that Mitch McConnell used to prevent Barack Obama from appointing his Supreme Court nominee in the last year of his term. It's all part of the game. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong or it's overly political or what. It's just that's the game over there. And that is as much deep state as anything that you'll find inside the administrative offices. It is the way the Congress works. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's not so much, you know, so he took my girl out, right? I don't have and I got over that already. So, has statehood actually worked out for Hawaii? Again, telephone number here, 888-8255. You think I'm doing something that's shouldn't be done, by all means, let me see. Somebody's jumping in here. Jesse Limtiaco, non-voting members are referred to as delegates, not congressmen. That's right. And Elwin says, so Daryl, are you saying that Mike should pay attention to his party, regardless if they are conducting business that is immoral or in conflict with what all Guamanians want and need? He should not focus on pleasing his party, but rather all the people of Guam. And then Jesse Limchiaco says the Dem Party is made of people, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're talking about not the issue, but the politics. You know, at some point, sometimes we're talking about the politics, and other times we're talking about the issue. So Mike took the issue that he couldn't get through his colleagues, this very same one. Because we can't do it locally, because we don't seem to have the political will, all of you guys together don't have the political will to do the right thing. I want you to vote for this resolution where we will ask the Washington delegate to put in a bill to Congress to amend the Organic Act so that they will we will put these into the Organic Act, so we have to do it. And that didn't go anywhere. There are two of them. And that's what he introduced. He's working on, right? One was introduced, another one's coming. Those two issues. He didn't come back here and work with his colleagues here to say, this is what I'm going to do. Let's get all on the same page. And if you have a problem with it, let's talk it out here behind closed doors. He said, I'm going to get out in front of the issue. I'm going to be the hero here. I'm going to do it myself without you. He's standing out there by himself. He stands out there to get the political credit by himself for everybody. for something that could just as easily be done by the governor without any further authority or bills needed or being told by the feds to do it or being told by the court to do it. The federal court's already got the an order on the government of Guam, permanent order to pay out the tax refunds on time within 6 months. And all Mike's trying to do is shorten that time period, that we have to have the money on file. And as a person who's worked for the bank and in finance, he knows that so much, if you don't have it in cash flow to just stick away in cash, then you will work to on a schedule to make sure that you pay out, $2.5 million here or $1.5 million there the next week, and you manage your money, you manage your cash, and if you run over, you pay the interest on the late charges. That's all. And it would be so nice if we had enough money to just go ahead and pay it out. But we don't have that kind of deep pocket to pay it out. And people are still paying too much tax. They're overpaying their taxes. That's why they're waiting for refunds. And also part of the refunds is the EITC that we have to pay out from revenues. So, that's politics. If you think it's something that needs to be done, it's something we'd like to have done. Getting our tax refunds within 10 days of filing. It'd be nice, but we don't even have a right-sized government yet. We have no idea what it's going to cost, and that's a higher priority. But this is a distraction. This is minor stuff, and he's trying to do it for political gain, to show how well he can do these things and be aggressive. But if he's going to lead, he's got to actually lead by bringing along his colleagues, working with them, and not getting out there by himself and then expecting everyone to follow him. Because he wasn't elected to lead the governor and to lead the legislature. He was elected to be in Congress and be the spokesperson for the people of Guam. And so he can't afford to be different, having differences of opinion. Let's see, Richard Leon says, working with Guam Dems and party, sorry to say, means we are obligated to the Anchor Pari Connections of Familia Game Politics Handbook. I think you have that on boilerplate, Richard. Jesse Limtiaco says, Daryl, any thoughts on the commission to reorganize? Jim Moylan's bill, it seems like another commission that would cause drama and politicize the whole budget process even more. Yes, actually, I was going to bring that up. I've got it here, and I've got my comments all written out. It's like, we want to debate and have a written out vehicle that says this is the way that the governor will do this. Something that's already on the books. It was authored by Frank Ogden, offered as an amendment to the bill that increased the taxes. And back 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And now the brain bump of, brain perfume of Senator Moylan is that we're going to repeal that stuff that was already passed and pass a brand new one that says almost the exact same thing and says exactly who's going to be on this commission. Well, that's already in their job description. It's in the governor's job description. She's already empowered to do it. So why do we need to spend the legislature's time examining this and debating the exact same thing that they've already had the power to do anyway? And it's their job to do anyway. So that's kind of where I'm at on that one. And yeah, lots of drama. Let's see. Jess Limtiaco says, exactly, politics is a whole new game. That's why many don't jump in the arena. It's sad, but that's how it is. Well, politics is good if you can stand it. If you want to get into the scrum, it's like playing rugby. If you don't know what you're doing, don't be in the middle of it. Let's see what's shaking on line one here. Line one, welcome to Tall Tales.
How you doing there, Daryl?
I'm holding my own. I'm glad you're here because after a while I can't be it's just I mean real Joe and me, right?
Yeah.
I can't even look out the window or anything, and it's like, is anybody there? That's why I'm happy to see the comments here by from Ishmael and Pierre and Jesse. It's starting to rock and roll. But thanks for the call. What's on your mind?
Darryl, I was listening to Mike and Nicholas, and then I was comparing notes with the other issue with the Speaker and the Governor wanting to use the Section 30 money to pay off. And Mike was trying to get a message across where the U.S. Treasury was probably getting some mixed signals, about what? We're going to give you $8-9 million to pay war reparation, and still you're going to use the Section 30 money. So I think he has a point here, man. Would you agree with me? Because right now I'm starting to see something that I can accept. Do you think he's on track with this? Like maybe the Governor and the Speaker should just lay low and let him finish the job. I think he's looking for 200 votes or something like that, and it's probably going to be on the table by about a month.
That's right. No, I'm so glad you reminded me of that. I totally forgot that example, but that's a really good. It was a good call on his part.
Yes.
That the Governor and the legislature should not be proposing another local program to use the Section 30 monies to make the payments that then would be reimbursed by the feds, or we would go to these very same eligible people and say, well, you got a check from us, so you don't need the check from them. So when the check arrives, just sign it over to us. They haven't figured this out. I don't think the bill's been introduced, but they already went out with their press statements. But what Delegate St. Nicholas was saying was exactly right. You can't have the governor and the legislature saying something that is an alternate to what is being proposed to the Congress. And it means it's just not cooked yet. It's half baked. And so it's the same. It's a great illustration. When Mike St. Nicholas steps out in front and doesn't consult with the governor and the legislature, the same principle applies. And so when they smell a difference between the three sets of elected leaders, the legislature, the governor, and the delegate, they have a choice to step back and say, sorry, you guys figured it all out before. Now, do you want to hear what I think about that other issue, about the Section 30 monies?
Go for it.
Okay, you know how long we've been waiting for reparations. It's gone so long. If we were going to have to wait until the Congress approved who would be eligible and then pay for it out of the money that we were getting already from the feds just because of in the normal course of things. So we're basically paying for it ourselves out of our own revenues. This should have been done by us 40 years ago. Don't you agree?
Yes, absolutely, man.
Yeah. So
like you say, there's a different ball game over there, and like you mentioned earlier, you got to have people on your side. There's no such thing as working alone or throwing tantrums or things like that.
No, it is.
That's a big league, man.
It's big league. It's deadly serious, and they don't waste their time.
Exactly. Hey, Darryl, thanks for taking my call, man. I feel a little better.
Thank you so much for calling.
Captain coming back.
48 days.
48 days?
48 days. It's a countdown. Yeah, he'll be back.
Is he all right? He's just on vacation, right?
He's got some things he needs to do, and then he's going to hang out and wait for something else he wants to do. But they're so close in time that one's scheduled and the other one's scheduled. There's no sense in flying back here and then going again 2 weeks later. So he figured he's just going to go hang out, and that's what he's doing. And God bless him.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling this afternoon. And that's I'm so happy to hear new voices. It's like seeing fresh faces here. Let's see. So thank you for the call, and it helps to that's a great example. Ishmael Velez says, because he's human and just like anyone else, I'd block anyone who annoys the crap out of me and is impeding progress. Sure, you know, let's see. I have to go back and start a little earlier. I believe the congressman is representing the people of Guam. Everyone else is representing themselves and their personal interests. Well, you know, that's an opinion, and some people think that Mike is playing that same game. But you know, I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. But he is occupying a single office. The ones in the legislature, only thing that matters is what they get their colleagues to agree with them on to move forward. Otherwise, it's just a good idea. And the governor is also representing the interests of all the people of Guam, but her job is to implement with all of the resources she has of the executive branch of the government of Guam. Okay, then Jesse Limtiaco says, if he is representing the people, why is he blocking people on Facebook? And then Pierre Turine says, sounds like the Comintern. You know. Then Ishmael says, because he's human and just like anyone else, I'd block anyone who annoys the crap out of me and is impeding progress. You know, that progress, political progress, you know, he can block people that he doesn't like. He didn't block me on Saturday when I went up and posted on his Facebook page what I thought. He got annoyed, but I'm not trying to block him. I'm just trying to, you know, provide him, you know, extend the benefit of my perspective. It's 5:30. Time to take seventh inning stretch. I'll be here on the other side. I hope you are too. I'll be right back with more Tall Tales after this.
Hey, do you know what time the bank closes? I need to deposit my check.
You know you can do that from your phone.
I can?
With Bank of Guam's mobile app, it's easy. Just endorse the back and snap a pic to deposit it into your account. You can do this from anywhere, anytime, which means no rushing to catch the bank and no lines.
With Bank of Guam's mobile app and online banking, we're always open. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Procrastination can affect everybody from time to time. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll finish up our look at the various types of procrastinators and ways to help them deal with the problem.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Another home run. You know, need to hit those home runs. And, you know, it may upset the pitcher, but, you know, it sure does feel good for all the fans. Yesterday, I was challenged to play some copyrighted music. And all that would do is knock the audio portion out of the Facebook page. You know, so maybe we don't need the audio portion in the Facebook page. Maybe my face will carry the content, and the comments typed on the side can carry. But you know, I'm not ready to risk that just yet. Maybe tomorrow I'll bring in some examples of some of the copyrighted material I would play, and I'll just set it up here on this board behind me, and you could read it, and I can swap it out almost like. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see if we can play around with some of the graphics on the Facebook page. Has statehood actually worked out for Hawaii? For those of you who think that Guam should become a state, you've heard me say before, if we had that election today, Chamorro only or not, if we had that election today and it came out overwhelmingly statehood, my suspicion is, my expectation is, that we would wake up the next morning after the certification of the results, and we would see the headlines that the President of the United States has asked the Hawaii State Legislature to amend the definition of the boundaries of the state of Hawaii to include a new county of Guam. It's just my suspicion. So anyway, let's see what, and we'll return to this someday. That's not part of the article. Has statehood actually worked out for Hawaii? This is something that Bob sent me back on Sunday, and it was originally printed in Honolulu Civil Beat. 60 years ago, on August 21st, 1959, Hawaii became a state. It was a day that capped decades of work to defeat oligarchs, racists, and fearmongers. To some, it was the culmination of more than 100 years of consistent American efforts to add Hawaii's star to the flag. Here in Hawaii, it was met with practically universal celebration. And why not? As a territory, Hawaii had less political autonomy than the 13 colonies before the American Revolutionary War. It had existed under an oligarchy. Statehood meant Hawaii would finally have a measure of the freedom and self-government denied since annexation. Its proponents in Congress hailed it as a hopeful step towards decolonization. Indeed, the theme of self-determination was consistent throughout the hearings that would decide the fate of Hawaii's bid for statehood. This was not a new desire in Hawaii. Long before the American-backed overthrow and annexation of Hawaii, King Kamehameha III considered annexing Hawaii to America, not because he was a budding American patriot, but because Hawaii was continually being trampled on and forced to concede to the imperial interests of the French, Russians, British, and Americans. Particularly pressing seems to have been bands of failed 49ers who kept landing on Oahu trying to foment rebellion and start their own banana republic. Better, the king seems to have thought for a moment to throw in his hat with the colonial power that would at least offer him some independence. Hawaii's first revolution was fought for similar reasons when Robert Wilcox rallied against the loss of suffrage and civil rights brought by the bayonet constitution. The great loss of self-determination that occurred with annexation was held back for a time by the ku'e. Wilcox would be back for a counter-revolution that was quickly outgunned. Even Prince Kuhio's pivot to the Republican Party of the annexationists was performed with autonomy in mind. He wanted to secure the freedom and future of Hawaii and its people, and new land was the key. The push for statehood occurred in this same vein. The great impetus was for self-determination, greater rights, greater self-governance. At first blush, statehood seems like progress. Perhaps it was, but it was also a dead end. Statehood brought with it the right to vote and the right to representation, but not self-determination. It brought change, but not progress for the average citizen. The time since statehood has been one of accelerated change in every realm of life. Tourism grew from a secondary industry to dominating the economy. We are faced with a housing crisis that began shortly after statehood and shows no signs of ending. We struggle to provide a future for the next generation here. The lives of those of us who stay are increasingly dominated by the reality of multiple jobs, never-ending traffic, and less time for the family, community, and aloha that make Hawaii. Just as disappointing as what has changed is what hasn't. In too many ways, our economy resembles that of the plantation days, centered around low-wage jobs, driven by corporate interests, and reliant on environmental degradation. The consistent theme of socio-political life since statehood seems to be the same. We are not building the future we want. Statehood ended colonialism, but it did not bring self-determination. As a state, we ceded our identity as a separate place. We are American, not Hawaiian, native or otherwise, as many would claim in the lead-up to statehood. We have entered a political and economic relationship that gives no privilege to those of us born here. Indeed, it disadvantages you. Income dictates where you can live, and as our mainland peers make more in relative and absolute income than locals, they consequently have more right to Hawaii than the family who can visit generations in the local Chinese cemetery. This is not a repudiation of our American citizenship, nor the ties that bind us here. It is simply a suggestion that statehood isn't what we need. Other options that grant much-needed autonomy while still recognizing the reliance and historical ties between political entities abound in the Pacific. Niue, an island in the South Pacific, for example, retains autonomy while still granting its citizens the privileges and duties of being Kiwi. The plantation worker who voted for statehood in 1959 hoped for her share in the American dream. She voted for self-determination and greater economic opportunity for her children. What instead seems to have happened is her children are stuck with much the same work in an economic and political landscape still dominated by outside interests. If Hawaii wishes for something akin to the American dream for its own citizens, we should start by questioning whether statehood is really the model that serves that end. This was called An Interesting Perspective by Bob Klitzkie when he sent this to me by email. I didn't find it on my own. I'm glad that he sent it. As I was reading this, I hope you were reminded of the negotiations done by the Northern Marianas in 1975 and their Article 12, I think it is, that restricts land ownership to locals, and what kind of an impediment that is to building capital, using land as a basis for capital, and what it's done with the economy there, but what it's done to benefit the people who live there. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but you can see immediately how the activity in the Northern Marianas has been informed by the activity in Hawaii and Guam. We have a caller on line 1. Welcome to Tall Tales. Hello?
Welcome to my environment.
Hey, I hope you're having a really beautiful day.
I am.
Good. That's what we're supposed to be doing here. It's just me. I get paid to do this, right? But, we're only here, when you woke up this morning, you didn't wake up and go, I want to talk about politics. Right? I mean, there are people who are supposed to do the job of politics and leadership and governance. And the only reason that we have to talk about it is because it's not being done to our satisfaction.
You instigated me to call when you were talking about whether Hawaii benefited from being a state, versus their previous status.
Yeah, blame it on the bossa nova.
It leads us to wonder also whether statehood might be the way for Guam to be in. I am for statehood or any other status besides independence and free association, because I want only a status where it will keep this island still being part of the United States of America. Either statehood or Commonwealth. But I don't want any other status for myself, because if Guam secedes from the United States and becomes an independent foreign nation, sovereign foreign nation, I would not want to live here, because I don't want to live on a land that is not part of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So whether we achieve statehood or Commonwealth, that's the only way I will stay on the island. If they succeed, I'm talking about independence folks. If they succeed in making Guam independence, I'm out of that. I'm going to get out of that.
Can I ask? Can I ask you?
I don't want to live on an island that is not part of the United States.
Can I ask you? I mean, it's not. I'm not going to ask you how you would vote because you're pretty much making it clear. But let me ask you if we could back up for a moment. just for a moment, just back up. And that is, if there was any vote at all that did not allow the people who do prefer independence or do prefer free association from having a full participation in the campaigning and the ability to reach out for the hearts and minds of other voters. If you had anything less than that, do you think it would be considered a fair vote?
No.
Okay, so we need to just get past this, right? We just need to have a campaign and have a vote. Because the people of Guam are the ones who are going to decide it. Whether you're talking about the original inhabitants, or the ones defined by the federal government when it took over, whether you're going to use the Treaty of Paris definition of the people who are living here or the Organic Act definition of the people who are living here. There's the third definition, which is the one that Dave Davis is preferring, is the current definition of who's living here. But that isn't the vote that was envisioned at the time when Guam was listed as a colony. So as we try to work through this and get beyond this, so then the sooner we do this, the better, so we can talk about something else, like what are we going to do for the future? And that is, this thing has been hanging us up for years and decades. This question is hanging us up. While the rest of the world progresses, we're stuck in neutral, and we're not getting better at this. This isn't something that is to our advantage to keep contemplating our navel, And I'm not talking about people who are moving here, people who are being, born of mixed marriages and coming up through school and getting their degrees. I'm not talking about any of that. That's life going on anyway. While
trying to get
we're still talking about the same stuff.
Folks, I'm trying to get these independent folks to understand that they are the ones, or the people that's trying to have this plebiscite now the way they define it. They are the ones that's holding us up. If only they'll do exactly like what Puerto Rico did. Puerto Rico already had their plebiscite, and they did not have any obstacle. They were moving forward with it real fast because they allowed everybody to vote in their plebiscite, regardless of whether they're indigenous Puerto Ricans or not. Everybody voted. Everybody that is eligible by age and they're registered to vote, right?
Oh, they had
everybody voted in their plebiscite.
The vote that we want to have now is the vote that Puerto Rico had back in 1950, 1952, before their constitution, before they became a commonwealth. We haven't done that vote. We haven't done the vote that our parents were supposed to be voting on before we were even old enough to vote.
But why did they change it where now the only people that are allowed to vote in the so-called plebiscite now are the people that were made citizens of the United States by the Organic Act and no other people?
Because, well, there's more qualifications than that I don't agree with, but at some point we have to just stop and have the vote. The United States defined the inhabitants of Guam and said that they would take care of the inhabitants of Guam when they made the treaty with Spain in 1898, 1899. Then when the U.S. Congress passed a law that organized the government of Guam and made the people who were residing on Guam U.S. citizens, they identified those people with particularity in the federal law. They said these people who reside on Guam, who don't have allegiance to any other nation, who are descendants of the people who were living here and born since on Guam, are the ones who are eligible for the U.S. citizenship in the Organic Act. In 1950, in August of 1950. Then, going forward, that group of people was supposed to have a vote and as a body, as an organized body politic, and that would have been everybody, to say, we're organizing as a people to express ourselves concerning the future disposition of this land. which belongs to the United States. But we are going to be a body politic on it, in it, of it, inside the governmental framework that was established by the Organic Act and by the Treaty of Paris, and even by the terms of the United Nations Charter and its efforts to decolonize, because Guam had been identified as one of the colonies, just like most of Africa and so many countries, areas around the world, listed as a non-self-governing territory. So after the 1990 census, the people who were descended from the people who got their citizenship, who were still resident on Guam, tens of thousands had already moved to the 50 states or were serving with the U.S. military, who were not living here, became a minority. And from that time on, before 1990, we would have been happy to have a vote that had everybody. After 1990, the march of colonialism had turned the people that were defined by the federal government as the ones who needed to make the decision on the land about the future disposition of this land, made them a minority. And we haven't gotten off that dime. That's why we have this problem of we want to be fair. But if you follow me for a moment here, if we have this definition where the people who are resident on Guam now, not living in Saipan, not living in Virginia or Washington State or California, but the ones that got the citizenship in 1950 or the descendants, living on Guam now, had a vote, even after all the campaigning and all the promises, political promises of the independistas and the free association people, how do you think that vote's going to come out? Don't you think that we owe it to the wisdom of the voters to tell us what that is? Let's just have the vote. It's not going to turn out any different. We don't have to have 55% people who moved into the island to make that decision. It'll turn out probably exactly the same way. That's my faith. That's my faith in what goodness has happened since 1950. But there are many people who don't have faith in the United States, don't have faith in the promise of the United States, and don't have faith in the Chamorro people, don't have faith in the native inhabitants to do the right things for themselves and for their families and for the future and for the island. Let's take a break here. Tom, can you hang on? And we'll talk some more about this in a moment.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, Real Joe, take it away, and we'll come right back.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Parents, start your child's school year right with healthiness and fun. Complete your child's immunizations, annual physical, dental, or eye exam at FHP and receive a free gift for each exam visit. Perfect for back to school. Valid from July 15 to August 31st or while supplies last. Visit their website or Facebook page for more details. Call 646-5825 and press 2 to schedule an appointment today. Most private insurance accepted. FHP Health Center, our island, your clinic.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And so, Tom, what do you think?
Daryl, let me know if you have a call coming in, and we'll let other people have a chance to talk. But before I let you go, the way the people eligible to vote in this plebiscite now is very bad, because there will be some Chamorros that will also be hurt. Full-blooded Chamorros where their mom and dad are Chamorros, and this Chamorro will be born in California, for example, because there are some people before World War II that are living in the mainland.
No, more than living here.
Yeah, and then they come to Guam and they live in Guam, right? They will not be eligible to vote in this plebiscite.
Well, yeah, they would if they're living here. If they're living in California, no.
According to that definition, that the people that are only eligible to vote in this plebiscite are the people that were made citizens of the United States that are living here during the enactment of the Organic Act, and that's it.
No. And their descendants. But they have to be, at the time of the vote, they have to be living here. They can't be living in the States. And I have a problem with that. I think it should be everyone, all the descendants, no matter where in the world you live, as long as you can trace back to 1950 and eligibility. One of your parents or both of your parents were living at the time, and you were they became citizens by operation of the Organic Act, and then after that, that's the definition. That's a federal definition of native inhabitant.
There'll be some Chamorros that were already citizens in the mainland, then moved to Guam, then they will not be eligible because they were already citizens. They were not made citizens by the Organic Act. That's what I'm saying.
There's even going to be Chamorros who live in Saipan from Guam, but they can't vote because they're living in Saipan.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, that definition is going to have to be worked out. But the more we work on those differences, the more it's going to be another 20 years, 30 years. We've got to have the vote.
We'll never be able to move forward in this.
We have to move forward because we're stucking ourselves in neutral.
Well, 2 courts have already told us that the way we're doing it now, this plebiscite deal, is bad.
Well, maybe we'll figure out a way that satisfies everyone.
The only way to do this is just to do it right and just say they got to remove the word Chamorro right to self-determination or indigenous Chamorro right to self-determination. Why don't they just get rid of those 2 terms and just say the people of Guam's right to self-determination?
Well,
the people of Guam means everybody that lives here, no matter if you're a Filipino, Caucasian, or whatever, you are a people of Guam.
Well, then you don't need to have a vote.
Yeah.
There is no need to have a vote because we already have it's already been done. The colonization is complete. It was completed when the military lifted, when the president lifted the naval and airspace reservation that was put in 1940. When they lifted it in 1962 and allowed American citizens to freely come and go. Before that, American citizens or anyone else could not freely come and go unless you were approved by the military to come in and out of the port. So, but since then, it's the colonization has accomplished its purpose, and there's no need for the Chamorros on Guam to say anything about Guam because it is a conquest from Spain, and it is organized by the Congress, and nobody here has a right to say anything about it because it was taken fair and square as a spoil of war, paid for by American blood, and you guys just happen to be here. Too bad, so sad. But it turns the Chamorros on Guam into a conquered people. That we lost the war, because there's other places where they lost the war, but they didn't lose their land.
I'm a Chamorro myself, but I'm a realist. I deal only in reality, and I deal only on facts. And here's the fact that I'm going to tell you right now: the Chamorros themselves are colonizers, because there were no people living here on the Mariana Islands 10,000 years ago, and the Chamorros, wherever they came from, that they colonized the island and they lived here. So the Chamorros themselves were colonizers. Then the Spaniards came, and the Spaniards colonized the colonizers.
That's right. And then they brought in Mexicans and Peruvians and Filipinos to be part of their, with my family, the Spanish from the Basque country and the north mountains of Spain, and sent them out here to work in the colonies, and then they intermarried and
we're all migrants.
We're all just a mongrel. Yes, but that's not the definition of the people of Guam in 1898 or 1950. We're just working with the American period. We're working under an American law and an American organization, and we're just trying to follow through on that. If you don't want to accept the fact that the United States has colonized Guam deliberately to take it from the people, to be its own, and the people here just got to get out of the way. If you don't want to accept that, then you got to push for a vote and then accept the result of the vote. And that's why we're trying to get through this. That's why we were supposed to get through it back in the 1980s. We tried. We were supposed to get through it back in the 1970s. We tried. And it hasn't gone away. It's 2019, and it hasn't gone away. And it only gets more radicalized as we go forward. And this is not the way that we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be better than this.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's 5:59 and time to go. I'll be back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And Ray Gibson will be here at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. You want to bring all this stuff up with him. I'll be looking at some of the comments online. And, you have a whack at me tomorrow. I'll be back at 4 tomorrow. I'm Darryl Tagerty sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. Thank you very much. Have a great sunset, everyone.
The Point is KU Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Unrest in the biggest police department in the country. I'm Jack.